Oliver, you didn't have as much work with me today, really almost no work with Oliver, but this is Oliver lives with Stella. And Stella probably wouldn't be sitting on my lap when I'm doing this video the way that I'd like, so we like to have a dog in it. This is Stella's roadmap to success. Now, Stella, I think because she can go to daycare and she can go to be with certain people without reacting to people. And so I think that she thinks her job is to be protective or possessive of her humans. And I think a lot of this is due, am I on the shot? Okay, you just look like you're going there. A lot of the times that we have reactive dogs, it's they're insecure dogs. Now, I think the guardians are inadvertently doing a lot of little things that have contributed to this unintentionally, like petting the dog when it's nervous. Well, anything your dog is doing when you pet it is what you're amplifying. And each time you do it, you might make the dog a tiny little bit more nervous the next time, or excited, or fearful, or aggressive, or whatever it is. So if your dog is nervous or scared and you want to be with the dog, you want to comfort the dog, you can touch the dog and let the dog know I'm here with you, and they do associate love with touch. But if I pet, I'm enhancing it. So to help the guardians with that, I went over what I call petting with a purpose, which is basically anytime that we want to pet the dog, even if we just want to pet the dog hasn't asked us, we still ask the dog to sit. And when it sits, we pet under the chin. We say, Oliver, you're such a smart dog. Yes, he's like, I want to get down. You didn't give me any cookies. You gave him all to Stella. And there's a bunch of cookie dust on the floor. We're going to let him gobble up here in a minute. But basically, the more that if the dogs tell the human what to do and the human doesn't, then that can convince her to think that she needs to be responsible for us. And so instead, what we're going to do is if you tell the human what to do, nothing happens. But if the human tells you what to do, you get paid, you get a benefit. So anytime she nudges us, scratches at us, and we should do this for Oliver as well, we're going to tell her, the dog to sit. When it sits, we pet her on her chin, just say the word just sit. Petting a dog on the chin helps it feel good about what it's doing. If the dog already is sitting, ask it to come and sit over here, or ask it to lay down. It just has to do something to change its state to get attention, unless it prepays for attention. So if it comes and sits in front of you and says, look, I'm sitting to ask for attention, we want to reach over and pet it and say sit, because now we're rewarding the dog for a desired action or behavior. And the more we do that, the more the dog will engage in that desired action as opposed to jumping up or barking or scratching at us. I also went over passive training, which is basically rewarding the dog for desired actions and behaviors. One of the things the guardians want to work on is Stella's recall. Now, she is never off leash out and about, but in the home, she doesn't always come. Well, so what I'd like the guardians to do is probably, they might want to think about coming up with a different command word, maybe here. And every time she comes to them on her own accord, pet and say here. Don't entice her at all, just simply recognize and reward her for doing it. I also do this with sit, lay down. If the dog brings you a toy, you can name the toys. But the more that we come up with a vocabulary, the easier it is for the dog to understand, and it gives us the ability to redirect the dog. We started off the session kind of opposite of what I normally do. Normally I do the inside rules and structure first, and then we move outside. We started outside because of how reactive Stella was. I went over some rules for the guardians. It's going to be important for them to enforce those rules consistently, at least for the next month, if not longer, as long as Stella has these problems, so that they can start acting like a leader. At least the dog sees us acting like a leader. So some of the rules are not being allowed with furniture at all, and then eventually only with an invitation, only for good behavior. So if it's past the time and we invite Stella up and she starts barking, she has to get down. Or if we invite her up and she goes to get a drink of water, when she goes back, she would need another invitation to get up, so the human's in charge of the resource. Other rules have to sit before we let the dog go through a door. So I go to the door and I say sit. She doesn't sit within about 3 seconds. I walk away, sit down, and wait 1 minute. Then I go back to the door, tell her to sit again. She doesn't sit this time. I walk away for 2 minutes, then for 4 minutes, then for 8 minutes. And as soon as I say sit and her butt hits the ground, we open that door like there's remote control in her butt. Eventually do it with both doors. I do it the door to go outside here and the door to go outside there. Bedroom as well. And also in the lobbies, in the hotel, in the elevator, and all the rest of that place. So sitting is a more subordinate position. She won't feel as dominating or aggressive in a sitting position. Doesn't mean she won't, but react, but it's going to help. Let me see, what else? The dog should be fed on a structured way, so one dog at a time. And the humans who's feeding should eat something first. Just something in 5 or more bites. It can't be a smoothie or coffee. They don't see those things. But if you want to eat a real meal, just get a piece of celery or a carrot or something. Eat it in 5 tiny bites, then give the dog permission to eat. Because he's the older dog and the littler dog, and really he thinks, in this dog's pack, he's more authoritative than she is. So I would let him eat first. That gives him more status. When he's done eating, if he goes and sniffs, and he walks away, I pick up the bowl, I dump the food out of it, and I put the bowl back down, and I don't have any sympathy because he had an opportunity to eat. He turned his nose up. Eventually, he'll eat when you offer him food. And then any food that he leaves in the bowl, we pick up and we dump. So eventually they'll learn to clean their plate essentially. Now when he's eating, I would have it, this is kind of an open area to have it. I would try to have it in a more closed area where you can kind of cordon off the room. And that way when he's eating, we don't let Stella within 7 feet. And when he's done eating, make him go a different direction, at least for the first couple of days. We did have a couple incidents between the two of them over resources. So maybe if it's in the kitchen, he leaves and goes to the other entrance of the kitchen, and then we make sure he stays away, then Stella gets to eat. So when he's eating, Stella's not intimidating him. When Stella's eating, he's not trying to intimidate her. And then mom and dad get credit for acting like leaders and putting forth the right structure. And the human eating first will really help. Let me see, what else do we go over in the house? One of the guardians refers to the dog as, one dog is hers and the other as his. I guess I've kind of tipped my hand as to who is who. But we really want to think of both dogs as our dogs and stop using the his and hers pronouns because dogs can pick up on that, and studies show that actually can impact their behavior. Now I'd like, if possible, mom is going to be having a little bundle of joy arriving, but we have a little bit of time. If possible, we'd like to have mom walking the dog, but if the dog is reacting and we don't feel comfortable with that, that might be something we might want to skip. Now, if we're going to have friends come over to do the bat training that we did in the video above, we want to put her in a position to succeed. I talked about some ways for exercising. One of the things I'd love to get the guardians to do is get an eye fetch, because both of them can play fetch together when the humans are gone. And so fetch is a great way to burn energy. We're in an apartment complex across from the beach, so we have stairs. Well, getting a long lead and throwing a ball or a treat down one flight of stairs, having her run down and coming back up, make sure each time she goes down and up, that would be counted as one. And I'd like the guardians to start a journal and start chronicling her exercise every day. I know we're almost done. And that way she gets to burn a little excess energy. No, I'm going to give you that one later. I'll give you this one now. She gets to burn some that excess energy, which is going to make it easier for her to deal with the bat training or to meet someone and not be so pent up and so anxious. So the stairs could be another one. The guardian runs with her, but he lives right across the street from the beach. I love doing rollerblading. I call it dog skiing. But doing whatever it is that we can do to put her in a position to succeed. Also, if we're going to have some people come over, taking your doggy daycare during the day would be helpful. And I would probably recommend looking at trying to take her in a doggy daycare a couple times a week if possible, because that social interaction is good practice and it will develop some confidence for her. Yes, I know, buddy. I know there's treats on the floor. We're almost done. Now, in the start of the beginning, I'll let you go ahead and get down, buddy. Let's go ahead and do those. So at the start of the session, we went over basically the bat training that we have in the very first video above. When you're recreating that, make sure the person that you're doing that with understands that they have to be completely reliant on you and they cannot make any decisions. So I eventually came up with a signal. I go like this when I meant we're done. But a little movement can trigger a response from her. Now, once you've done it a couple times, you noticed in the video she started going straight to my hands for the treats. After a while, like I was doing this in the video, is I was waiting for her to sit and then I was offering the treat. That should be a step that somebody does a couple of times in. That was like the third or fourth time that I practiced this with her. But what she's learning is that I approach this person, she smells the person, and then treats are associated. And the person's not moving, the person's not trying to touch her, so that helps her have more confidence. Also, the guardian is going to do a good job. We went over practicing U-turns. And so if the guardian sees something coming towards her, a lot of times we just keep on pulling the dog with us, or we're going to come, regardless, we're going that direction because we're thinking of the destination where we're going. Stella might look at that as, oh my God, danger is approaching, danger is approaching. Why is he making me go towards danger? He's not going to protect me. I have to protect myself. I'm going to lunge at this dog, this person, to make them move away. I think that's where a lot of this behavior has come from. So if possible, we want to do a U-turn and walk away when we recognize. So if her tail starts going up or down, or her ears come forward, or her hackles go up, or she starts licking her lips, or she starts breathing heavy, or holding her breath, or staring and freezing, those are all warning signs. So if we recognize one of the warning signs and immediately take her out of that position, increase the distance, which is what she wants, now we're making her feel less confronted. And she doesn't have to deal with the situation. Her guardian is handling and managing the situation for her. And with enough practice, then she'll start reacting and count on the guardians to do that. That's why it's so important for the guardians to act as leaders in the house by enforcing rules consistently. Eating first, feeding the dogs after, and things like that. All these things have a cumulative effect on the dog. Now, when I first started doing it, I was sitting on the floor, literally on the pavement. We tried to do another one where I was laying face down in the pavement, and that really freaked her out. She's probably never seen somebody do that, so she was barking to say, this is different, you're doing something wrong. Again, I think she thinks she's on duty. So taking her to doggy daycare will help deplete her energy, but also give her that social interaction with meeting a variety of dogs, and I think that's going to be very important for her rehabilitation. Now, going back to the outside stuff, when we're doing that, make sure that there aren't any beeping sounds or lawnmowers or leaf blowers. If somebody's walking nearby and you just even the tone of voice or the way that person's walking, like they're laughing hysterically, don't chance it. If you feel uncomfortable as the handler, as you see somebody coming, crouch down and call her to you and ask her to come away and reward her. Again, come up with a word that means turn around and move away from the danger. So whatever, peligroso, use some Spanish or whatever you want to use. But eventually you can just use that command word, and then she should turn and come back towards you on her own. Now, the person that we're doing, we'd like to have different people doing this. If the person's very fearful of dogs, they are not a good candidate. They have to be somebody who's confident, but also is going to listen to you and not, like I said, no unauthorized movements. And what you're going to do is the handler got pretty good at it. So he let her sniff, and as soon as she started showing you those signs that I talked about a minute ago, stiffening up, freezing, he asked her to come away. Now the handler or the person who's playing the position I was doing, if the dog starts looking in the face, they should close their eyes. Now I was kind of squinting my eyes, so I was able to watch her while my eyes look closed, but direct eye contact is a dominance issue for a lot of dogs. Now one of the things we talked about in one of the videos was doing a game of catch. So if we do have somebody that's going to come up here, we'd want to set her for success by getting her a good exercise or socialization at doggy daycare that day. Then we want to meet the person on the street. And then we would, if we could, have the person meet us and do the same thing, kind of what we did for this session. We met for the last 2 or 3 days in a row, meeting for a quick 5-minute meeting, and then she got a sniff, she got some treats, and that person didn't come home, she didn't have to interact with them. And each time she got more and more relaxed. The guardian mentioned when we were outside, she's totally relaxed, and she was, because I didn't try to pet her or touch her, and good things kept on happening. So when we're doing this, we again want to have the person be very slow. And at first, don't do the treats, have them handing the treats, just maybe put some treats around. But eventually when they do it, I was holding the treats here because that gives her the ability to come and sniff me in a lot of different areas. And then I was kind of letting her have the treat. If I had multiple treats in my hand, I would suggest only having one treat in each hand. As soon as she nudges that hand, flip it over and offer it like that, and hold your hand still. Do not move your hand. That can cause a nip. Any sudden movements. If you've got a sneeze or something like that, come up with like a signal. So I go like this, and then as soon as the handler sees that, he moves her away, then I can sneeze. So don't do it with somebody who has a cold or is going to cough or sneeze a lot. But the idea is we just basically want her to practice engaging with them with nothing. In the best possible scenario, we're creating staged situations for her to build up her confidence, and then move her, and then she also practices moving away, so which creates that distance. But again, the main thing is to watch no tension on the leash, and the tail should never be higher than the spine. And we don't want it straight down. If it's between the legs, that's a nervous insecurity. We definitely don't want to do that. I recommend the guardian get a big roll of yellow ribbon, and every time we go for a walk, tie a bow halfway down the leash to the dog. Yellow bows are an indication the dog needs more space. It has a medical issue or a socialization issue and doesn't want to be approached. And it might be not a good thing for its approach. And people don't know that, but people come up with, what's the big bow for? So make it a pretty big bow so it's pretty noticeable. And you just say, oh, she's a little bit wary of strangers, and we put the bow on there because people ask like you did, and it helps us let people know not to approach her and makes her feel more comfortable. But if you say she doesn't like new people, the people will come up and try to show you, and then we have a problem. But if we can also stage that and do the tossing thing. So if you have your friend out there, maybe they first come and meet her, and they're just holding still, she comes to sniff, she call her away. Do that 3 or 4, a couple of times. Now they're starting to have their hands. We're doing it, don't have their legs under here. Have their legs kind of out. So you're a little bit more of an open position to the dogs. And I have, the position treats here, 1, second one, the dog gets pulled away. Do that at a couple different locations. And then after she starts to feel a little bit more relaxed, it'd be ideal to have you walking together. And every once in a while, have the person stop and Stella sit, toss a treat. When she catches it, say catch, then walk a couple more paces. Maybe just go for a half a block and then walk back into the building as you're doing that. So now Stella has that interaction with the person on multiple different ways, and she's getting the high value training treats. I'm trying to think. Am I leaving anything out? I'm sure I'm leaving a lot out. I cover a lot in 3 or 4 hours. But I want you to call me if you have questions or problems. Text me. This is definitely going to be a dog that's in the 1st percentile that's going to need a follow-up session. There's nothing wrong with that. She made good progress, and I really was pleased with the progress. We were just watching. She's out on this little deck. there's a cleaning guy right next door that was leaning over with a broom and then with his hand wiping down the railing, and normally that would have set her off. I think one of the guardians said he's lucky to still have that arm left. But because she's a little distracted looking at me, and because we've been doing work, she didn't feel particularly threatened for that. And that's what we should start seeing, is her more and more relaxed in these situations. But in the meantime, try to avoid situations that are going to be overwhelming for her. If there's construction in an area, don't walk down that street, or busy cars or skateboards or things that she might trigger her. We don't want her to practice the unwanted behaviors. All right, well, this is Stella's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes, let me say it again. Everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it.